Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever stopped to think about the invisible engine that keeps our entire economy humming? Well, today we are pulling back the curtain on freight brokers. These are the unsung matchmakers of the highway who make sure all the stuff you love actually gets from a factory to a store shelf. Let's dive right in. Really think about that for a second. We're talking millions upon millions of shipments, everything from new smartphones to fresh avocados, crisscrossing the country 24/7. So, how in the world does a company out in California find that one specific truck driver over in Texas who happens to be available at the exact moment they need them? It's a logistical puzzle on an absolutely massive scale. And that whole puzzle really begins with what the industry calls the shipper's dilemma. Okay, so on one side of the equation, you've got a shipper. They just made a bunch of product and they need to get it moved. On the other side, you have a carrier, a trucking company with an empty truck ready and waiting for a job. They're a perfect match, right? The problem is they often live in totally different worlds and they really struggle to find each other efficiently. And that gap, well, that's where delays and wasted money start to creep in. So, who steps in to bridge this gap? Who connects these two worlds? Well, that's where our hero comes in. The freight broker. At its absolute core, a freight broker is a professional matchmaker. It's really important to get this. They don't own the trucks, and they definitely don't own the freight. Their entire business, their whole reason for being, is built on one simple thing: connecting the person who needs something moved with the person who can actually move it. But it's so much more than just making a quick introduction. A great broker is a master negotiator, hammering out a price that works for everyone involved. They're also an expert coordinator, managing all the crazy logistics from pickup to delivery. And on top of all that, they're making sure every single shipment follows all the complex government rules. For the shipper, this means reliability. For the carrier, it means less time hunting for work and more time on the road earning. So, how does a broker actually do it? How do they connect a shipment from start to finish? Let's walk through the play-by-play. It's actually a pretty elegant process when you see it laid out. It all kicks off when a shipper has a need. The broker then immediately taps into their huge network, which is often supercharged by some really sophisticated software, to find the perfect carrier for that specific job. Then they confirm every last detail, the weight, the dimensions, the route, before that truck even thinks about moving. And once the delivery is done, the broker takes care of all the payments and paperwork, which makes the whole thing totally seamless for everybody. All right, now for the part I'm sure you're curious about: the money. How does the broker get paid for making all this magic happen? Well, the model is actually incredibly straightforward. Let's just use a simple example to make it clear. Let's say a shipper agrees to pay a broker $3,000 to get a load from point A to point B. That's the total price on the contract. So the broker gets to work, finds a great, reliable carrier, and negotiates a rate with them. In our example, they agree to pay that carrier $2,500 for doing the actual driving. And boom, there it is. That $500 difference between what the shipper paid and what the carrier receives, that's the broker's gross profit. That's their commission for putting the whole deal together. So to put it as simply as possible, a broker's income is the spread, that little margin between the price the shipper pays them and the price they pay the trucker. And that margin has to cover their expertise, their network, their overhead, and all the hard work they put into coordinating everything in what is a fiercely competitive market. But what does this all feel like for the people who are actually behind the wheel of the truck? It's really important to look at this from the trucker's point of view. Yeah, for truckers, working with a broker is definitely a two-sided coin. On the one hand, brokers provide immense value. They give truckers instant access to tons of work, they handle a lot of the annoying paperwork, and they give them the flexibility to choose the jobs they want. But on the other hand, there are real challenges. That broker's fee, which is usually around 10 to 20%, comes directly out of their revenue. Sometimes the rates offered can be low, and slow payments, man, that can cause serious cash flow problems for a small trucking business. So, as we start to bring this all together, it becomes really, really clear that brokers aren't just some optional extra. They are a truly vital piece of the entire modern supply chain puzzle. This quote just sums it up perfectly. By acting as that central hub, that central point of connection, brokers are the ones who make sure the goods we all depend on are moving smoothly, efficiently, and safely all across the country every single day. So for any truckers watching this, finding the right broker is absolutely everything. A good partner is going to have a solid reputation in the industry. They'll be totally transparent with their rates, they'll communicate clearly, and maybe most important of all, they'll pay you fairly and on time. Choosing the right one makes all the difference in the world. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. The next time you're on the highway and a big rig rumbles past you, just take a second. Think about that incredibly complex dance of logistics that's happening behind the scenes, and maybe give a little nod to the invisible freight broker who connected all the dots to make that entire journey possible.